What is it like to be you?
I would say it's pretty average, to be honest. If you were on the outside looking in, you would say that it was pretty boring. Because for the most part, I don't. What I tend to do now is I tend to just really stick to myself, because I have to be very careful about how I'm interacting with people and under what context I'm interacting with people. So I tend to limit anything that would be negative for me.
Why do you have to limit yourself?
Because if I encounter a certain kind of person, and if I'm talking to you and I sense a level of weakness, I get kind of the urge to prey upon that in a way. So in order for me to kind of mitigate that, I definitely limit my social interactions. And I have to make sure it happens underneath the right context. Otherwise, I just, I try to stay away from it.
I have to be fully transparent.
Mm-hmm.
When you reached out to me and I read your diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, can I trust him?
Mm-hmm.
Can I give him the platform of our audience who I care deeply about?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to try to manipulate me? Are you going to try to manipulate our audience? Are those valid concerns?
Those would be valid concerns for sure. But as I said earlier, I would say I like what you do, because definitely people have voices that need to be heard. And I would hate to, disturb that process in any way.
When you say prey on somebody, what do you mean?
So the way it would work for me is, I'll speak to someone. I won't really tell them much about me. They'll tell me about them. And then once they tell me about them, I'll kind of form a personality. I'll exaggerate certain features about my own personality to match what it is that they're looking to see. And then once I get my goal, whatever that goal is, then I'm done with the situation, and then I move on. And I've had feelings that I was strange as long as I can remember.
What was it like to feel strange at a young age?
It was a bit interesting, I would say, because you're kind of able to exist on the fringe, and it's kind of like you're on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's on the other side of that window pane. So it kind of gives you the freedom to watch and to look and to observe, especially if you're a quiet person naturally. People can kind of forget that you're there.
Did you feel like a different animal, a different species?
No, I thought everyone else was different. As a kid, I thought they were the weird ones, and
What was weird about them to you?
Like, why do you get so sad at certain things? Why do you get so excited over certain things? Like, it's not, I just looked at it like it's not natural. I wasn't really able to relate to other people, and when people would get extremely angry or extremely sad, I would say as a kid more so I would actually get annoyed. Or if people would get overjoyed, and sometimes people get super excited, they jump up and down, they clap. As a kid, I would get annoyed by that because it's like, I don't understand what's the purpose of this overt display? It doesn't do anything for anyone. Just the fact that you got good news, it doesn't make the good news better if you jump up and down about it. So I sat back and I watched people. And I watched how they were able to do things, and I used this information to outsmart people. I was able to outsmart a lot of my teachers. That's kind of how it started, the manipulation and the lying. I would outsmart a lot of my teachers. I would come up with lies on the spot. Like, I would come into class and my teacher would ask, "Where's the homework?" I would tell her, "Oh, my dog, he got rushed to the hospital last night. We were there late until about 3 a.m. and there was this problem and that problem and that problem. And I don't even have a dog, never had a dog."
So would it be correct to say that when you meet somebody, you kind of size them up, mm-hmm. and you say, okay, this person shouldn't or should be manipulated?
It's not should or shouldn't be. If I have something that I want to get, then I'm gonna do my best to get it.
Since I walked in here and we started talking, mm-hmm. have you sized me up at all and analyzed any of my weaknesses and how they could be manipulated?
When I was watching your videos, I thought about it, but I wanted this to be kind of like more of an honest format. But no, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. And it's also, I don't really gain anything from doing that in this situation anyway.
Can a person ever fully trust a sociopath, though?
I would say that you have to, if this is someone that you actually care about, you have to spend time with them and see actually where their head is at, I would say. And I would say if this is, in most cases, you wouldn't even know. To be honest, you wouldn't know until they did something to you, if I'm being honest. So, but if you're meeting someone like me who is gonna, who will tell you that this is what I'm going through, I would say watch them. Watch and see how it is they react to certain things. See if they, are prone to outbursts. See if they're willing to lie to you. See if they're willing to manipulate you.
So I find it interesting that you said in order to trust a sociopath, you have to watch them, observe them, and understand their behavior. So it's almost like you want people to act like you, or you only understand the world from your perspective.
I wouldn't say it's that I necessarily want people to act like me. I look at it like it's more so about your own safety. In a way, if you're dealing with someone that does have those kind of issues, they do have strong urges. So that's where, the observation point comes in, because you can't always perceive certain things like that based off of emotions. I'm really good at faking emotions. So you wouldn't, if you're going off of emotional basis, you wouldn't know.
When would you say is the last time you've manipulated somebody?
It's been about a year.
A year?
Yeah, it's been about a year.
How have you gone a year without that?
I kind of limit my social interactions. I make sure I'm not dealing with certain kinds of people.
Did you always understand the negative effect manipulation can have on others?
No, I didn't always understand why people had an adverse reaction to it. Because in a way I kind of looked at it like a game, and you lost.
Do you feel ashamed about people you hurt in the past?
Shame, not necessarily, but I do look at it as being inadequate.
You being inadequate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It's low frequency. Low frequency actions, low frequency emotions. That's really all. That's how I look at it. It's just, it doesn't really help anyone. I guess it serves me. I get to fulfill a sensation, but then I have to fulfill the sensation again. So you could say, even for me, it's not working. So when you kind of think about it logically like that, and you gain insight, which is the issue, people that have, that diagnosis, it's hard for them to have insight in terms of what other people are experiencing. So, you have to just gain a level of insight, I would say.
What are all of your diagnoses?
So when it comes to antisocial personality disorders, specifically, you can see a lot of overlap with different conditions. So for me, I have bipolar disorder. There's the antisocial personality disorder, and then also I have some traits of borderline personality disorder. Typically, a person with the antisocial personality disorder, if they're getting diagnosed, it's because either someone asked them to go that was close to them, that's hurt by their actions, or they did something illegal, and now they have to see someone.
Why did you seek out therapy in the first place?
Because I was going through, for quite some time, I was going through basically bipolar episodes. And it was unusual for me, because there would be times where I'm like feeling a level of happiness, like this kind of overt happiness, and then there would be just this deep depression where I don't want to leave bed, or I'll be intensely angry, or I'll be so numb that basically, I wish I was dead in certain circumstances. And that was unusual for me, because throughout my life I was used to not really feeling too much. And I do feel like, the bipolar disorder kind of resulted from the antisocial personality disorder. I feel like it came from me just, I guess, trying too hard to feel like I was a regular person. And then it never works for too long, because in order for you to have people close to you for a prolonged amount of time, they're gonna find out that something's wrong.
Did you have any fear with telling the world your diagnoses?
No, because I mean, I've already been called, all kinds of things, so I don't think it really makes a difference to me. It doesn't change my life in any way, no.
Do you have any type of emotional reaction when people call you those negative things?
It depends, because if it's something where I guess you could say I'm trying to be genuine, because I'm not always manipulating and lying to people with the intent of deceiving them. Sometimes I'll do it to make them comfortable. Mm-hmm. So if I'm putting in all this effort to be something, to make you more comfortable, and it's not received, that can have an effect on me.
You smiled a few times in this interview.
Yeah.
Is that something you tell yourself to do to make me feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I smile a lot. Especially if I'm in regular conversation, you were to see me on the street, I'll be smiling a lot. It disarms people. It makes them more comfortable.
Do you have the capability of feeling empathy for others?
Not in the same way that an average person would. So say, for example, if someone came up to you and they told you, oh, my grandma just died last night. You may feel intrinsically sad when they tell you that. You may feel sensations almost as if your own grandmother passed away. For me, it's not like that. I won't say that I don't care. That's harsh. But it doesn't make me sad to hear that at all. So instead, what I'll have to do is I'll have to logically understand that, okay, this is an event that people typically get sad at. So I would have to find words of confidence to give them. I'm sorry that happened to you. I know that must be hard. Is there anything I could do? Would you like to talk? Things like that. My grandfather passed when I was about, I was 5 or 6. I remember sitting on my father's lap and he was crying. And I remember wiping the tears off his face and telling him it was going to be okay. I understood that my grandfather was gone and he wasn't going to be coming back. But at the same time, I didn't understand why all the tears. I would say I ended up becoming very perceptive to people. It's not like a thing where sometimes people, like, I don't know if you can do it, but people can walk into a room and kind of feel the mood without even really interacting or looking at anybody in the room. I can't necessarily do that. So I'll have to walk in. I'll have to look at people, observe, any body language. And then from there, I would go off of that. So just all of that, basically, that is just simulated emotions that I've been using.
When was the last time you felt happy?
I don't know. Truly, I don't know.
When was the last time you pretended like you felt happy?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. Because, it makes people uncomfortable. If they're around someone, like, how do you not, experience joy?
Would it be correct to call you a sociopath?
I mean, if you're thinking in terms of scientific terms, sociopathy, they kind of discarded that term a while ago. But in terms of what most people understand it to be, I would say yes. Layman's terms, yes.
Do you have the desire to have a close relationship and maybe even get married in the future?
I'm not sure yet. That's something that I debate with myself, and I'm not 100% sure if I want to get married and have children. The notion of it seems reasonably nice to me, I would say, but I don't know if it would be 100% possible. Because when you speak about romantically, it's difficult to get people to understand that is, people start to feel inconsequential. When I tell them it's not necessarily, it's not really you. Like if I like a person, me liking a person is based off of traits that I notice within them that I feel like would be basically beneficial for me going down the road. And I would like to explore those traits further. So it's hard to kind of explain to someone that, is in an emotional sense, in a romantic sense, I'm not super connected. For me, it's a sense of duty and commitment. So I'm going to do things for you because you are who you are to me. But people, they in relationships, they want more. They want a little bit more from you. So it gets to the point where I'll basically put that mask on to make them happy. but I can't hold it up forever. So they find out that there are some, inconsistencies there in terms of the emotions. And when you're trying to get someone to see past the emotional aspect and just look at it in the sense of, how I look at it, I'm committed to you. They don't really, it's hard to kind of explain that. People start to feel like, they're inconsequential. It's not really me that matters. If I want to connect to someone, like in a relationship, for example, if I meet someone that I have an interest in romantically, like I don't like you the same way, like, how people like each other. I don't feel any emotional attachment to that. So in order to make someone comfortable and lack of emotional attachment, I have to wear a mask. Like, I have to remind myself to tell my family members I love them. I have to remind myself to maintain in contact with my friends and things like that. So, it can be off-putting, if I'm not exaggerating a bit.
So I want to make sure I'm interpreting this correctly. It's almost transactional. You see that they have personality traits that will benefit you, but then you also want to do things for them to keep those personality traits around because in the long run that's more beneficial than not having that person around.
Exactly.
It's almost like a math equation.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. It kind of is like a math equation. So I would say there's definitely, like anybody else, some people I like a little bit more than others, of course. So some people I would try a little bit harder, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. It is a transactional thing for me. People, they'll be very wary of you. So anybody that I tell, they're very wary of me.
Is that warranted?
Is it warranted? I would say yes. I would say yes, because you do have to be relatively careful when you're dealing with someone who truly has the antisocial personality disorder. It's not necessarily a thing where there's gonna be physical violence or you're gonna be hurt or anything like that. But if that person doesn't have insight as to how their actions actually affect other people, I would say the likelihood for you being manipulated, even if it's in a small way, is going to be very high, because most people with sociopathic tendencies, they're not going to always formulate super grand schemes to take advantage of people. Sometimes it would just be, I'm looking to get lunch today, so let me manipulate this person over here so I can get $10 and go get lunch.
The fact that you're talking so openly about all of this, that means that you're not really concerned with wearing a mask anymore.
No. So it's just, I've come to a point where it's just, I have to accept it, that this is who I am, and trying to do too much to change that is where I start seeing negative things come into play.
Do you want to feel like a regular person?
I would say I wanted to at one point, but I've kind of let go of that more so recently, and it has been helping, because I find that the more I try to fit in, the easier it becomes for me to do negative things, manipulate, lie, and become angry, ridiculously angry.
What is your motivation not to do that stuff?
I just feel like it's too much chaos that I'm putting out there in the world, and that's really it. I just feel like it's too much chaos, and that's just not a good thing.
Is that something you realized independently, or did therapy help?
I would say therapy definitely helped me realize that, because speaking with my therapist for the 2 years, she helped me realize that a lot of the things I was doing was basically it was all kind of self-serving. And at a certain point, you do have to gain a level of insight, and realize that, you're making your own life harder.
What would you say to the people you've hurt in the past?
I would say, I wouldn't even say that I hope you can forgive me. I would say it's more so I hope you can forgive yourself. There's not anything wrong with you. you are still perfectly fine as a person. And I would say basically, I won't say don't take it so personally, but don't look at it like, there's something wrong with you. It was something that was wrong with me, basically.
Is it still wrong with you?
I struggle with it. That's why, I limit myself in certain situations.
Do you view yourself as better than other people?
Yeah, definitely. But I do my best to kind of combat that. Because that comes from, outsmarting people. You get this sense of, inflated sense of self, almost narcissistic, I would say.
Do you believe you're better than me?
I would say based off of my belief system, no. Simply because of the work that you do. Again, not really an emotional thing. It's just the work that you do. People benefit from it. So.
What is your belief system?
Certain things are right and certain things are wrong. And that's it.
Is that something you taught yourself, or was that learned through therapy?
It was a combination. Because, my therapist would help me. She would help me navigate through the confusion. Like, I would come to her with certain problems. Like, I said this to that person and they reacted to me like this. Why? Why did that happen? I don't understand. I thought that I was emulating the best I could. So it would be things like that. And she would teach me the difference between just emulating and exaggerating versus trying to more so genuinely connect with people. And that's where the whole understanding, like we mentioned earlier, someone tells you that their grandmother passed, you have to realize and you have to recognize that can be a horrible event for people.
Do you have any fear that once you share your diagnoses, people will always be skeptical about you?
I mean, that's not necessarily a fear. It's a given. For me, it's a given. I would say I'm more surprised when people don't judge it.
Do you have any fears?
Fears. I would say the fear of being inadequate. That's the main one. The fear of being mediocre. I don't wanna die feeling like I didn't do anything, basically. And that's really my only fear. Yeah.
How would you define inadequate?
Just having no benefit to the world, basically.
Do you think most people are inadequate?
I won't say most because there's quite a bit of people in the world, and I haven't met most, but I would say, yeah, there's a good amount of people that I would say are inadequate.
Is that why you're okay with manipulation? Because you view many people as inadequate?
No, that's not the main reason. Even if I view the person as adequate and I'm able to still manipulate them, that's like bonus points. I mean, we're all self-motivated. Like, we're all a bit narcissist. We're all a bit, we all are a bit,
but
psychopathic.
Where does it go from the typical amount of narcissist, the typical amount of self-driven to, okay, you now have antisocial personality disorder?
I can't speak to that. That would be like a person-to-person basis, but it's traits that we all have. In order for you to survive in the world, you have to be a bit narcissist. Everybody does things that are self-serving. Eating and drinking are self-serving. We're literally killing the planet with our eating habits, for example. We're killing the planet with our transportation habits. People do things that are self-serving. So it's not inherently a bad thing as long as the things that you're doing that are self-serving aren't resulting in negative outcomes for other people as well as yourself.
So what makes you care about having a negative impact on other people? Is that intrinsic? No. It's
just a matter of, you're causing unnecessary problems for other people. And I look at it from a very logical perspective because, a lot of trauma is passed down. So if I do something to you, for example, and you carry that throughout the rest of your life, I don't know if you have a wife or kids, but let's say you go on to have a wife and kids, and now your trauma from the event that you had with me filters into that. Now your wife starts to get a level of trauma, your kids start to get a level of trauma, other people that are close to you start to get to a level of trauma. Anyone you meet, it's possible the same thing can happen. So I look at it from that perspective. It's not an emotional thing, it really is a logical thing.
What was it like before you were so self-aware?
I would say it was very confusing. Very confusing because I didn't quite understand why it was. I didn't feel the way regular people felt. And I would often do things that would be, categorized as sensation chasing. So, you would engage in illegal activities, for example, and if you don't get caught, that's quite a rush. It's quite a rush to not get caught doing something. That's things that I used to do, lying and manipulating people. That gave me a sense of power in a way because, I can't necessarily feel anything myself in a way. So it gave me a sense of power to know that I can control other people's feelings.
Do you think you will manipulate somebody in the future?
No. Not to the extent that I did it before, at least. I could see myself doing it if I'm engaging in a business deal. It might be beneficial for me to get you to raise that bottom line, stuff like that. Which is manipulation. It's just...
Now, it might be the way that our collective minds have been trained through mainstream media, but when you say that, my first thought is, that's what a manipulator would say.
Yeah.
Should I ever lose that skepticism? Should the viewer ever lose that skepticism when interacting with somebody with antisocial personality disorder?
You gotta know. Like I said, the people that I've known, I've had my friends for in between 8 and 13 years, 12, 13 years. So it's like they're not too concerned about that because, they know that, this is a relationship that's been pre-existing. The people that are close to me, I don't really do anything to upset those people because that's not beneficial to me to upset the people that are close to me.
Were you or are you ever a risk to be violent?
If you cross certain lines, for sure, definitely. I can get to a period where it's like I shut down. Like say if we were to get into a heated argument and you're yelling and screaming, I'll probably just hit you. I won't talk too much.
What is that line for you, though?
I don't tolerate disrespect in any shape or form. That's kind of the main thing that will get me angry the quickest.
What do you perceive as disrespect?
If you show any disregard for me, basically. So kind of the same things that I would do to another person, more or less, But that's kind of like an ego thing, which, I do work on.
So I don't mean this with any disrespect, but would it be correct to call you a hypocrite then?
To call me a hypocrite? I would say yeah, in a way. And that's exactly, why, I want to work on my problems and do more positive. That's why I do my best now to not manipulate people and lie to them and do things like that, because I know that if somebody was to do it to me, depending on it, again, it depends on the context too. It depends on what's actually at stake,
How would you explain what it is like to have your diagnoses to somebody who has the typical range of emotions?
I would compare it to that first moment when you wake up in the morning and the world is kind of just an empty canvas and there's not much really happening yet, so you're just super neutral. That's really how I would describe it.
How do you look at yourself?
I just look at myself as just pretty normal, pretty average. I think the media kind of overly sensationalizes, antisocial personality disorders in general. They make it seem like most of us are just murderers and we're just off the hinge, which in some cases, rare cases, yeah, it can be true. But most people because all mental health issues exist on the spectrum. So most people you're going to see that are going to exhibit these traits are going to be high functioning. So you would career fields like doctors, CEOs, lawyers, you typically see them engage in those fields because a lot of that stuff is logical. It's not really emotional based. And the way you're dealing with people, again, is emotional based. It's all logic. So you'll find, people like me in those fields.
Are you proud of yourself for anything?
I mean, I do have a sense of pride. I would say I'm proud of myself for sitting here right now because this isn't something that I would normally do. I'm sure even people that I know and people in my family are going to watch this and they may be surprised to hear that, I do have certain issues.
What would you like to say to those who are close to you who are learning about this for the first time?
It's still me, hopefully they're not offended by anything that I say. A lot of people that I've only actually told maybe 2 people about it. And they have, people typically have adverse reactions to it because people start to feel like, oh, well, you don't care about me, right? And that's not necessarily the case. I just have my own way of going about it.
What is the most important thing somebody can learn from this interview?
I would say I did this more so for people with, antisocial personality disorder. I didn't necessarily do it for people that don't have it, because I want people that suffer from it to go get the help. I want them to learn how to use all those techniques that we use to lie, to manipulate, to hurt. Use that to benefit people, if you can, because it has a collective effect. That's really how you have to look at it. You have to look at it in a logical way. It has a collective effect, and it makes your life more enjoyable. People will be more so willing to, I guess, accept who you are. And again, it's not really an emotional thing. It makes it easier for you to live life when you're not having to constantly hide and, lurk within the shadows.
What do you think when you hear the term sociopath?
Regular person with less emotions, to be honest, because that's what really most people would be that have antisocial personality disorder. It's just, the sensations we feel. We don't get a lot from the external world. And then again, everything is on the spectrum, so I can't necessarily speak to other people's experiences, but I know my own experience. That's how it is.